Hey, welcome to Ike's Vintage Tech. Typically, I'm working on old systems like this and thoroughly enjoying it. However, I spent about 4 hours on this thing last night just trying to get DOS installed. So I'm going to do something that's a little more relaxing. I'm going to fully restore this Japanese Game Gear to its original glory and then some. The only problem is I've never actually done this before and I'm reading off of instructions. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now that I got last night's headache off the bench, let's start with tonight's headache. Hopefully not terrible headache. So the Game Gear actually holds a really special place in my heart. I had one of these when I was 12 years old. My parents got it for me back in like 92 and it was amazing. Before this, all I had was those little bubble water games that you play in the back of the car to get the rings around little pegs. It was dark, dark times. I never had a Game Boy, never had anything like this. I did have the Sega Genesis, but that was not much earlier than this. The only downside is I had to share it with my little brother. Now I got one for myself, and we're going to fix it. Now, starting here, the original Game Gear that I got here from Japan off of eBay for $38 shipped, which is amazing. It was listed as parts not working. It does actually work. There's no corrosion on any of the contacts. None of the caps are severely leaking. There is some signs of leakage, but nothing bad corrosion or anything like that. The audio board was nearly dead. You could barely hear it. I already did throw in the Clean Amp Duo, just a quick swap to just see if the sound would work, and it comes through clean now. But that's the only part of this whole install I've done yet, and I'm going to take it back out and actually make it full stereo, because the other part of the kit I got was a brand new case. Now this case has 2 speaker ports and it's translucent black. Let's get all the little bits and pieces out of there. So beautiful case. The amount of work they do on these things over at Retro 6 is just phenomenal. This thing is pristine, absolutely clean, probably better manufactured than the original. It's, as far as I can tell, perfect in every way. So we're going to go ahead and get everything put inside this. Now, before I get that far, I am going to have to replace the screen and recap the power board, motherboard, everything. Yeah, I don't need to do the power board because I'm also doing a clean juice upgrade, putting lithium rechargeable batteries using a USB-C adapter. So that's perfectly modern now. The only thing original in this thing is going to be the actual motherboard. Everything else is getting completely swapped out and upgraded, and I can't wait. So we got the capacitor kit here, we got my soldering iron, hot air station, and on top of that, we are also doing the Benn Venn screen. Now, I did a lot of research, and this appears to be the easiest, for me at least, install of any screen of all the options. It has a little ribbon cable that comes with it that is just perfectly clean. You don't have to run 1,000 little tiny thin wires all over the inside of this thing. It's not going to look like spaghetti. It is translucent, so I do want it to look good. So let's get started. Now, I am going to have a before and after. I did take a little bit of video of this thing playing Sonic 2, just so that you guys could see the before and after of this thing. I've seen other videos of people doing this repair, and it is pretty straightforward. I'm not too worried about this not working, knock on wood. But overall, there is some risk. You want to make sure that everything in here goes in the right place. You don't want to put a capacitor in the wrong spot. Speaking of which, this is the last time I'm going to be using this particular game screw, so I won't be needing this much longer. But you get that out, you pop off your battery covers, which are actually in good shape. Now, one thing you can say about the Japanese is they really take care of their stuff. They'll call something garbage that we would call, lightly used, and they use it until it doesn't work anymore. And I've ordered quite a few things from Japan over the years, automotive parts, motorcycle parts. Everything that comes from there is just in phenomenal condition. And this thing was rated like 4 out of 5, 4 being on the worst side. 1 would have been perfect. And it turned on. Like, it turned on, it played games. The screen was very dim, which is to be expected on these original LCDs. But when you get a Game Gear from Japan, it's going to be a VA1 most likely. It is going to be in great condition. And of all the cheap ones I could find on eBay, I don't know anything about those. I do know that most kids treat their electronics like crap, as did I. And you get some questionable stuff on eBay. You might strike a great deal, but you don't know if you're getting a VA1, VA0, VA3, 4, whatever. You just don't know what you're going to get. So at least coming from Japan, I've got a decent idea that I'm going to be getting a VA1, which is what I got here. Once I get it open, I'll show you. All right, you want to be careful and you want to open this up kind of like a clamshell because you do have a couple cables here. Where'd that screw pop out? There it is. You do got a couple cables here that have to come off of their respective boards. So you've got your sound cable that comes off like that. You've got your speaker cable, which is right here. That's going to get replaced with brand new speakers. And that comes out. So the first thing I did is I did pop in this CleanAmp Duo just to test it out, see how it works. Great sound off the original stock speaker. It comes set in mono in case you only have one speaker and you want to upgrade in the future. For the price of the board, it's absolutely worth it. It really doesn't cost a ton of money. It was like $20 some, and it just works. You don't have to recap it. Like the time you're saving right there, all 3 minutes of it, but still the time, the fact that it's a much better engineered board than the original. I'm very happy with everything I've gotten. I had to order from 2 different companies because who had what in stock. So the particular parts I got for everything here, I got from Retro 6. So I got pretty much everything from Retro 6. The only thing I got from Z Labs was the Benn Venn screen, because that's what they had in stock. Overall, shipped was under $200 American. Probably a lot less. I'll put the price up for everything. But to get this entire system the way I did from Japan pretty quickly at that, this has not been a long wait. So usually when you order stuff overseas, it takes forever. You never know when you're going to get it. In fact, I don't know why I'm taking this board out, because I'm not even going to be putting it back in. But I might as well get it out anyways, because it's good to save these parts, the switch covers, stuff like that. You never know when you're going to get the itch to build another. These things become so cheap. Now, I maxed out. I went all out on everything, but you can do this pretty cheap for like under $100 if you want to get just the screen, keep your existing components. Otherwise, the capacitor kits are like $8, so it's so much easier just to get the stuff that you know is good. I prefer to order a lot of stuff on Jameco myself, but in this case, it was easy. This is unfamiliar territory for me. I've never actually recapped a Game Gear. I've watched several people's videos and they were very informative. So that is a help. Thank YouTube for that. But yeah, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to try to transfer the serial number over to the new case, because they even made the serial number sticker the same size. So this is just great and amazing. The attention to detail that they went into remaking, something that is essentially 30 years old now. It's just amazing. Little fuzzy hair in there from who knows where for how long. But yeah, let's get going with this. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove your main board here. We are going to be removing the CFL backlight, the original screen, a couple components here, and it's pretty straightforward. There's plenty of recap videos on YouTube, so if I don't cover the exact thing that you're looking for, I apologize, but there's plenty out there. Now, my particular channel is mostly, old PCs, old Macs, stuff like that. And I do like to do that, but every now and then I like to dip into this because I was going to do this anyways. I wanted one of these for most of my life to have for my own. They've gotten fairly cheap and fairly easy to repair. So I was going to do this anyways. I may as well do it on camera. So to the 12 people that came here for Game Gear content, thank you. But to all you guys that like it for PC, don't worry. I'm going to be doing that again soon. That Toshiba you saw in the beginning of my video, like I said, it kicked my ass. It was a real pain. I couldn't get the thing to boot the DOS. I was able to fix the floppy drive, which was good. It had a bad belt on it, and I got that repaired. I got it reading floppies, kinda. That was part of the problem. The floppy drive was still very unreliable. I'm going to get back to it probably later this week. But I already have, tons of footage filmed putting the darn thing back together and getting it to boot and getting DOS installed and then not working. It's a head scratcher, and I will figure it out. But for now, I'm doing this and enjoying it. All right, here we go. I've got the original board and screen out. My watch is telling me to go to bed because it's kind of late. Not really, it's like 9:15. But yeah, this is the original right here. You've got the little translucent plastic that spreads the light. You've got your actual compact fluorescent bulb. That is old. A little bit of dust. Gamepad stuck on there. So what else is stuck? The little button. This thing works great though. I am very, very pleased with it. So we are going to go ahead and remove this. I've seen people use solder tips and kind of get messy with it. The best I've seen is hot air. A little bit of hot air and the thing just peels right off. You don't want to get too hot with it, but pretty simple and straightforward after that. Now luckily, I don't need to save the screen that's on here. It's not going back on anything. It's got quite a few dead pixels, which is not bad considering its age. So let's go ahead and set a temperature here. Okay, a couple things I forgot before I get any further ahead of myself here. I'm going to want to apply a little bit of flux to the ribbon cable, and I'm going to want to hit record on my overhead camera. There we go. Starting to lift off quite easy now. I'm just using about 450 degrees. Medium airflow. Okay, I'm just going to reach around it here and lift up on the screen. See if I can keep you in frame. There we go. Set that aside. That should be the last I use the air gun tonight. Inspect my work. All right, looking at it, it does not appear to be that any of the pins have been lifted, so that's great news. Let's go ahead and turn on my regular soldering iron. Let's go ahead and plug in my regular soldering iron. All right, now that I got that plugged in, let's go ahead and turn it on. And I'm going to clean up the solder on that connector. And I'm also going to go ahead and start removing some of the other bits and pieces here, like the CFL lamp, the old resistors, stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and put my guide here. It's pretty handy to have. It's only like 12 capacitors, so it's not going to take too long to do. They are all surface mount, and they are all now film resistors, so I don't have to worry about these things ever leaking ever again. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything just works. Luckily, I don't have to do the power board. I don't have to do the soundboard, audio board, so this is all going to be pretty simple. All right, soldering iron has been heated up. There's still quite a bit of flux on these connectors. Okay, that cleaned up pretty nice. Looks like I found a little leg or a little pad from the ribbon cable itself, so, you know, not a big deal. Just gonna pour a little bit of IPA in the cap here. Never double dip when you're doing that, because it will contaminate your entire bottle. And also be careful with an open bottle. Let's go ahead and get this all clean and beautiful. I'm gonna get the edge of the board where any of the flux is going to come down. Check those pins out, make sure that there are no contaminant in between, no bridged contacts, because you're only using a handful of points on this entire ribbon cable compared to the earlier one, but you don't want anything to bridge because it could possibly go somewhere else that you don't want to you know, short something out on. Next thing I'm going to do is just remove the CFL, since that isn't going to need to stay. Normally I would add flux to this thing, but it's just a giant ball they gooped onto there. So let's go ahead and give a little pressure, and that should pop right out. And just a little pressure and pop right out. So normally I would throw something like this out, but cool little display for your desk, you know, why not? This little guy right here has to be removed. That's pretty straightforward. Just like that, pops right out. That can go right in the trash because you're never going to use that again. That disables the fluorescent backlight circuit, so you're never going to have to worry about anything in that failing ever again. From this point on, I'm going to start removing the existing capacitors. Now, these little guys are actually like your standard through-hole type capacitors, but they have them in these little plastic cases, and they're surface mounted on. So they definitely could be leaking, most likely are, or gonna soon. So you want to get those removed, and you want to replace them with nice film resistors. Like I said, the kit that came from Retro 6 was like $7, $8. Perfectly fine for what I'm doing here. So let's go ahead and get those out. Okay, picked up a little pair of pliers here just to assist, because some of these appear to be glued down. So I'm going to lift them off of the board so that I have a much easier time desoldering them. Because they we're not budging, and then it's like, oh yeah, they're glued. That's why they're not budging at all. All right. Be careful when you're breaking things on a board that you're not breaking the wrong things, because you're going to have a bad time. All right, back to the beginning. Go ahead and let's just see if I can kick that right off, just like that. Lift it up. There you go. Pretty simple. Now, when you're using a soldering iron with force, yeah, you know, it's not a strong force, but you are flicking bits of these resistors away, and you want to make sure you're not flicking something else that is definitely still attached and needs to be attached. But this way, it's pretty straightforward. You're not putting a lot of time on those pads, so you don't have to worry that you're going to overheat them and rip a pad off. Just like that, nice and simple. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm getting a little heat on one pad, leaning it to the other side. Not very hard, but just enough to get the one leg off the pad safely and give it a little bit of a lift, and then do the same with the other side. And it just pops right off. Just like that. Very little force. I'm not actually like putting enough force to lift a pad. And all that's left is this big goober right here. And it is in a hard to get spot. So there's the one. Let's see if I can get that second one. There we go. I believe that's all 12. Let me double check my work. Yeah, that was great. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this board up, and we'll skip to the part of putting them back on. All right, I got it all cleaned up. Let's get the board in view here. It, looks like a board. It's pretty standard. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to prep each pad that I'm about to solder to, only one for each resistor. That way I can kind of tack one and then tack the other. So I want to go ahead and add a little flux to each one, and we are going to go ahead and get that done. All right, so the first one I'm going to do is on this side here, next to your, I believe it's the power cable, comes off the power board, or I don't know, comes off a board. Yeah, that would be the power board. So I'm going to go ahead and tack this in here because it is a tiny, tiny crevice you got to get in there. So we're going to get that one first. That calls for a 100 UF. So go ahead and get these out, or at least 5. All right, I had to go get some tweezers because this is tiny work. Now, I am lucky that I still have my sight up close. This is something that could be very hard if you have poor vision. So highly recommend one of those magnifying scopes. Makes life a lot easier, even for me, because like I said, I got great up close vision. It's not perfect. There's definitely some times where I wish I had a better lighting, better whatever. So one of those scopes are worth every penny as well. Now you don't want to cook these capacitors too much, so you really don't want to get too much heat on them. Like I said, that's going to be the hardest one, only because of its location. That's a horrible tight spot without removing that ribbon cable, and that is an option I could do because they do give you a ribbon cable with the whole kit. It's also would have been a lot easier if I wasn't trying to do this on camera. I've used that excuse before. It's legitimate. So, all right, now that that is done, I got the hard one done. Let's go ahead and figure out the rest. Okay, so that's it for the 5 100 UFs. I'm just going to go ahead and recap the rest of it real quick because they all look the same. So just make sure you got 5 100 UFs, 5 10 UFs, and 2 1 UF. All right, one thing I did quickly here was the 2 1 UFs are so tiny. I recommend not pre-tinning the pads because you want it as flat as possible. Just use the pointy tip of your iron here. I'm going to show you in the next one. So you want to use the pointy tip of your pointy tip of your tweezers. You do want to flux it. You want to get it in there ahead of time. And then, because it is so tiny, you want to put a little bit of solder on the tip of your iron. Go ahead and hold that down. Oop, see, I moved it. You got to have a very steady hand. You only want to use the tip. And that's it. Just very, very lightly touch it. Give it a second to cool. And then do the other side. And just let it flow like that. That is a very good way to do it, especially when they're that tiny and you don't need them popping off, going the wrong direction, bridging anything. There you go, both those 1Us are on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish the other 5 10Us and we'll start putting it back together. Actually, no, we're going to do a screen and then we're going to put it back together. Now, while I got this here, there is one thing that you have to do on Japanese Game Gears that you don't have to do on the rest of the world, as Japan puts it. There is a pin on this ASIC chip that you have to lift off, and you can switch it. You can put a little switch in there that you can turn it back to Japanese or rest of the world. Now, I'm going to leave it as is because I don't have any games that are affected, but some games choose their language based on the way that pin is on your ASIC chip. So if you do have a Japanese Game Gear and you have a game that is actually dependent on that chip, then you're either going to want to learn Japanese or you're going to want to go ahead and fix that chip. I'm not going to do that today just because I don't have any games in my collection that are affected at the moment. And even if I did, it would be kind of cool. Like, I can figure it out. That's part of the game. Most Game Gear games didn't have long playability anyways, so why not learn a little bit of Japanese? Make it interesting. Okay, we got all the flux added, or all the flux removed. Next step is our Benn Venn screen. Let's go ahead and get this guy out. This very well packaged. Let me also turn my recording off. I don't need to be recording every single thing. So we got the Benn Venn screen here, and it is very well packaged. It has a little 3D print, little 3D printed margin or frame, whatever. It keeps it, in where it belongs. Here's a bunch of resistors that I will not need for the audio board, unless I decide to repair the old audio board. But for the price of a new one and the quality of the audio coming out of it, why would you want that on there to begin with when you can get brand new? So they give you 2 different buttons. They give you black or the matching plastic. I don't know, I might go with black. We'll see. I'll figure that out when we cross that bridge. Our Clean Amp Duo I'm also going to be running, which, like I said, is already in there. There's just a few extra things, speakers and whatnot. and our clean juice. So let's get everything where I can access it. So here's the instructions. Because I've never done this before, this isn't a how-to, this is a watch me do something video. I mean, granted, if you use my video as a how-to, more power to you. This is more of a let's watch Chris hopefully not destroy his Game Gear. So, all right, so I've already removed this guy. We have to cut a post off in here. It makes me cringe, but it's got to be done. So you want to cut this little post out because they're going to need that space when the screen goes in. So it's not a huge deal. All right, so I'm going to use some cat nail trimming tool here to cut that off pretty close. And I'm going to trim it down just a little bit more with a Dremel probably, just to get it nice and clean. That should only take a second. Okay, not too bad. I marred it up a little bit, but that's going to be covered by the glass screen protector, so not a huge deal. So, now that I got that cut off, next step, place ribbon upside down. So let's get the ribbon out. And we are going to want to tin these quick. Now carefully rip your packaging open without ripping the ribbon cable. So I'm going to want to add a little bit of flux to the contacts here. And you don't want your iron too hot for this. Okay. Let's see how that looks. There we go. I took all the bridge pins and made sure they're individual now. Okay, getting that in place, I'm going to want to take a little piece of Capon tape and secure this because it looks like it's very easy to move. So I do have a Capon tape dispenser. I wish I knew where it was. But this will do for now. Get everything in place where it belongs. Tap a little bit of flux. Make sure I am on pin 1 as it instructs. All right, Capon tape is in place. Now I can safely move this bugger over. Okay, I'm going to clean that out and then I'm going to wring it out. So that way I make sure that none of my contacts are bridged together. All right, once you get that done, I removed the Capon tape just so I could clean the flux and also use the test points here to wring out the ribbon cable onto the board just to make sure everything is where it belongs. I'm pretty confident that it should work. It looks pretty clean. I didn't bridge any pins. And let's go to the next step. All right, next step is you want to connect the ribbon cable to your up and down pads. That is M10 and M11. So once again, a little bit of Capon tape. I'm going to get that in place, and that should be a real quick tack. Careful what you stick this stuff to. It can make for a bad day if you rip something. So let's go ahead and add just a smidge of flux once again. Now it does say you want to keep your iron under 300 degrees Celsius. If my iron had an accurate temperature reading, I would, but I basically took it to the lowest point that I could melt solder. And that should be fine. Okay, those two are on. I'm going to carefully remove this Capon tape. When all is said and done, and I've got all my flux cleaned up, I will be applying a final clean install of Capon tape just to keep everything nice and flush to the board. And when you do fold your ribbon cable here, you don't want to give it a tight pinch. You kind of just want to lightly fold it nice and clean. Like I said, once everything is done here, I'm going to go over everything with a final pass of Capon tape just to secure everything the way it should be. Now we've got our screen. Now, they do not recommend using any isopropyl alcohol or flux on these signals here because it could leak into the LCD itself, and you don't want that. You're spending all this time and patience and money and whatnot. You want it done right. You don't want to jank up your whole install here. Now, I do recall putting flux on these pins prematurely, so I'm going to wipe that off. I'm sure somebody's already commented, like, what are you doing putting flux on that? You're not supposed to do that. That's why you read directions after you do stuff. Okay, good. It does have a screen protector, so you got sticky fingers from flux. Don't worry about it. You're going to peel it off later. Okay, we are going to need to tin the gold leads on this cable right here. These contacts through here and these 5 contacts right there all need to be tinned. Don't want to spend a lot of time on there. I don't know how heat sensitive this screen is. Don't want to find out. So that much is done. Let's go to the next step. Okay, your PCB should look like this. Note, do not ever use thin liquid flux or IPA on this display. It will ruin the IPS panel. Noted. Now we need to align the motherboard. Okay, here's the part that's gonna suck. I have to now pull this screen cover off and then not touch that screen with my dirty fingers at all. Now I should have looked at this. There are some little 3D printer hairs lying about. I had to take those off real quick. There we go. Okay, next step, fold the ribbon cable over the component side of the motherboard. Okay, I'm going to use this bit here just because it's a little cleaner tip of a Phillips head than my old Craftsman here that's been used and abused for all those years. Now this is 3D printed material. You don't want to like send it home. You do want to just slowly screw it together until it stops. You don't want to overdo it. There we go. Looks clean so far. Next step now is to solder the ribbon cable in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it, fold it over, and hold it in place. And we're going to hit that 5 volt on the bottom first, just carefully without burning my thumb. There's that. And then again up on the top. There we go. Now all the rest should be lined up, and they are. So I'm going to hit those real quick. Okay, I'm going to use the back of my tweezers here to make sure that the ribbon cable stays on the board. Okay, that feels like it's in place good. Okay, we got our start button ribbon, which needs to go over, looks like C38 in my case. And then you go to the middle pin. Little bit of slack on that cable. I'll fix that. All right, in my case, I have a VA1 motherboard, so I'm going to snip a couple wires off of this, which just feels scary, but the instructions say it's okay. All right, so I connected my clock to FB1, I believe, or yeah, Foxtrot Bravo 1. Did a quick solder job on there. Let's see what is next for me. I am not installing the touch module, so I have to connect number 4 to the 5-volt with a small wire. Now I do have some small wire that came with the audio kit that I'm not going to need, so I will go ahead and use this. I'm going to go ahead and tin the wire super quick. Add a little flux to the spots needed. Oop, no flux on that. Let's wipe it off with a dry Q-tip. Forgot the no flux. Alright, got the small wire attached between the 5-volt. I think this is all touch related. I'm not doing the HDMI connector. This might be it for me. I think it is. Yep, not cutting HDMI into it. And that is it. That is a Benn Venn screen with a lot of extra steps. I am going to go ahead and apply some Capon tape where needed. Never hurts to put it on there. Especially when the wire has a little bit of free play. Like this long one there. It's the perfect color. It matches all the other cables so it doesn't look like garbage. Gets rid of some of the play on there. Ooh, there are fingerprints on that board. I'm gonna be mad at myself. But I will use an actual screen cleaner to clean that. I'm not gonna use the Q-tips and alcohol, none of that. Just an actual screen cleaner and a microfiber cloth, and then followed up with tape to get any dust and lint out of there. All right, to clean the screen, I've got this stuff called apple juice. It's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna spray directly on the screen because I do not want too much liquid getting anywhere it shouldn't be. All right, looks like I got all the fingerprints off of there. There's a little bit of dust, but that'll come off later with some tape. So let's set this aside face down to keep any more debris from falling into it, fingerprints and whatnot. So the first thing I need to do is decide which buttons I'm going to go with here. I think I'm going to go with, I don't know. It's a hard one. I think I'm going to go with the black buttons on the clear black case here, because why not? Now, a part of me wants to keep the blue start button. I think I might do that. Just because I'm a little nostalgic and I believe the start button should be blue. So let's clean this start button off with some IPA and see how it fits. I might not be able to go with that button, but I do like the color. And it does fit. So I'm gonna stick with it. Alright, so I'm gonna start putting the extra speakers together here. Now in the original Game Gear, these little speaker holding plates are melted on. So in this case, there's only 2 screws that are holding it in. And I guess you could melt the 3rd post if you wanted to with your soldering iron. I'm just gonna leave it as is. All right, now that I got the speakers in, I'm gonna start putting everything else together in reverse order. So hopefully this doesn't take too long. The only thing I could foresee myself having trouble with here is my cable routing of the speaker wire. So until I get it almost together, I might have to reroute it. So hopefully that won't be the case, but we will see as I get there. Beautiful. So here's the board. Perfect. It's just gonna fit right in here like so. Yeah, not much to do to it. Just got to route the cabling. So that's pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and route these cables. Now, if I can avoid popping out the existing, I don't think I can. I think I have to pop out the existing wiring. That's fine. So I can go ahead and snip all of these. Feels so bad just snipping off something that's brand new to modify it, but you know, whatever. So that's just extra wire for future projects. And then these should just pop out. A little help, perhaps. There we go. Put those in my can. And then we just have to route the cabling as such. That's a tight fit. And there we are for the first one. And the second one, same deal, route the cable, little hole up there. And I assume it'll be just as tight a fit. Yeah, a little snug, not as bad as the other. I'm gonna attempt to route this nice and clean. I think perhaps a little bit of glue, like hot glue, will help this process. But for now, I'm just stuffing in these down here using the tools I got on hand. All right, that looks clean. Not terrible. Let's get the audio board where it belongs. By the way, there's a very, very small connector you need to bridge. And I will do that quickly. Two small points that you want to bridge to make it stereo. Okay, essentially a little bit of a solder blob over that millimeter apart continent, like 1/10 of a millimeter. It's tiny. So once you get that blobbed on, you could try a little bit of wire, but it's so tiny, you just bridge it. It's pretty easy. It's funny, when you don't want to bridge points, you do, and then when you try to bridge points, they don't want to bridge. All right, now for nostalgia reasons, I am also going to go with the red switch and not the black one that they give you. If it fits, that's the most important part. They give you new stuff for a reason, but if I can keep the original on here, I will. Oh crap, I gotta lift that out. Okay, now it's together. Quick little test of the switch. You see some LEDs turn on, so there's already some juice in those batteries. Here's where I find out if I did a good job. I also find out if I need to rearrange some of these speakers. Now, let's see here. The one on the left is the original short one. And then the one on the right is the long one. All right, put that together. Get your audio board together. And just see if it closes. Okay, it seems to turn on. That's a good sign. Let's see if it'll play a game. I don't know what to do. So the screen turns on. I'm just getting a black screen. Let me try another game. All right, bit of the same deal. I am going to go ahead and see if I got to tear something down here. See if I'm missing something. Alrighty, I got it all back together. I had a little mishap when I first turned it on. It was a black screen. I didn't have the camera on at the time because I was not paying attention. But let's get this camera out of the way because I'm not doing top down anymore. But anyways, got it together. It turned on. The screen was black, no sound. It wasn't actually running anything. I could turn the contrast up and down. I could turn the volume up and down, and you'd hear like the white noise turning up a bit, but no go. So it turns out on the back end here, that little T10 cable that you kind of have to wrap around and under on the VA1 board, there's a through hole solder point that I missed somewhere in the instruction, or it was a little vague and they wanted to look at the picture more than the words. But nonetheless, I took a chance and soldered that point together. It looked like it belonged because it was right over that point. And when I did that, it booted right up. Put it back together. I do have to screw it together still. I haven't done that yet. It's late. Once again, doesn't always go as planned, but it's working. So I just spit on the screen. Excellent. So I still have a little cleaning solution here that is on the rag. So rub that in, and it might leave a little mark. Take a dry spot of the same rag, as long as it's clean. Not rag, microfiber cloth. All right. Completely clean. There's a little lint. Not to worry. You take a little bit of your Capon tape or, Scotch tape. Any sticky surface that'll peel off easy without leaving residue will work. Make yourself a little nub and get the lint out of there like so. Look at it at different angles. Get some area outside of here so you don't knock any lint in. And that's pretty good. If I can avoid talking over it, that'll probably help. And here we are at the final piece, not counting screws. The glass screen for the Game Gear. This came with the kit. I didn't get this as some cheap Chinese knockoff, even though everything probably came from China to begin with. Nonetheless, this is the actual one that came from Retro 6 with a 3M pad on the back. Very nice lettering. They did a great job here. The Sega, the lines between the letters are crisp and clean. This probably looks better than the original. But lost all the pieces. Yeah, it's pretty crisp. It's as good as you're going to get it. So let's carefully remove the sticky part. Carefully now. Inspect it, make sure there's no dust. Double check that no dust fell in the meantime. And there we go. That is on there. Gonna make sure all points of contact are on there good. One thing I need to do here is I need to put all the screws back in. Now, I'm not using the silver screws that Retro 6 sent with a kit just because I've got a clear black kit and those are silver screws. So I will be using the black screws that came with the Game Gear originally. You want to make sure that none of your wires are inside the holes where they don't belong. That is beyond important because you'll be taking it apart again. You really got to crank these screws down until the shell stops gapping. You'll notice as you're putting it together, you think it's tight, and then you start seeing a gap. So that's how you know it's all the way in. Like, you can hear that gap on my microphone, I'm sure. So there we go. That's 4 of them. There's a couple more underneath the battery. I want to make sure those are in. Now the battery is very tight, so you want to be careful not to force it up. And you also want to use a non-metallic spludger, black stick, whatever you need to call it, to get that in there. And you will not be using the game bit to be putting it back together. Slap the battery covers back on. Got Sonic in there. Let's go ahead and give it a good wipe down. Not a speck of dust on the inside of that screen. That, I'm very happy with that. That's 9 years working in an optics lab. You'll get a certain crazy OCD about you when you see any dust under a lens. It'll drive me mad. Just like that fingerprint I put on there. There we go. That looks amazing. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Got the blue screen right there. Clean, crisp sound. Stereo sound. No rattling. The screen just looks amazing. This, I'm very, very, very happy with this. The final little bit. Will it charge via USB-C? Is there an indicator light? I don't know. If there's supposed to be an indicator light, I don't see it. Doesn't mean it's not there. I guess I'll find out when the juice dies. So hopefully that is Oh, you know what? No, it's not charging. I unplugged my USB-C power brick to plug in my soldering iron. Be right back. Okay, let's try that again, with it plugged into the wall. There you go. You see a nice bright light. At the moment, amber. I don't know, maybe it changes color when it's fully charged, but this is a game changer, no pun intended. Little pun. I am beyond happy. This brings me right back to being 12 years old. Big mess in my room, so obviously, yes, I'm 12 again. So, although my wife would probably say that would count for now, too. But yeah, this is amazing. This is everything I wanted. I can't find the little port cover. It's here somewhere. But this is great. I'm going to do a little before and after that I'm going to splice together here. But you'll see it at the end. This is amazing. I am very, very happy with this. I hope you liked the video. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be going in. I thought I'd just walk into this thing, read some directions, and slap it together. I took my time. Overall, it took a couple hours. Not terrible. If I had to do this again now, I could probably blow through this pretty quick. It's one of those things that once you do it, you can keep doing it. And yeah, I'm sure there's different variables that you'll come across with different boards. But for the most part, if you can get this done without breaking it successfully, like actually getting it done, not having to rework it much, it's pretty easy to do. Take your time. If you know how to solder, go ahead and do it. If you do not know how to solder, you don't want to learn on this. But, assuming you know how to solder, a lot of us do, it is fun. It's a very rewarding. You know, when you look at the before and after, this is very, very rewarding. And yeah, I think everyone should do this. Anyone with an old Game Gear, spend a couple bucks and bring it back to life. We have a 7-hour road trip coming up, and I'm going to throw this at my daughter and just get the iPad out of her hand for a little bit. See if she likes it. If not, my wife will use it. So while I'm driving. I got a mess to clean up. Thank you for watching the video this far. Like, subscribe, and here's that before and after I promised you.